Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. Just going to talk for a bit. Couple things were brought to mind, but first and foremost, the Archon Intensify mod has been pseudo patched and is now working with heal over time abilities. I've tested it on Trinity 1, Saren Molt with Augment, um, Garuda, her 2, um, even Titania's passive counts now. So for all of you that are running health frames, figuring or health regen frames, or something that had a heal, and you were considering the Archon Intensify mod, but were staying away from it because of its bug state, it probably works now. I tried it on 6 or 7 frames. Obviously, it doesn't work on Protea because of the fact that the orb's healing you, but many abilities now that provide healing or health regen and health recovery. The health recovery is the important part. Are now effectively working. Um, so consider that now that the Archon mods are available. Um, but I don't know. I just wanted to talk a little bit. I guess this is more of an apostrophe. I'm obviously going to figure it out, but um, for those of you that were here before the Archon mod series, showing the preview, giving people like information on how the sets interact with their frames so they can make good decisions on the mods when they first get them, because it's obviously going to be a limited resource for a bit. Most of the time, I would just talk about Warframe related topics, whether it was something from chat or um, just something that I was dealing with in the game. Now, some of you know, some of you don't. I'm pretty sure most of you are relatively new here. So the one thing I actually wanted to talk about was more of sort of a self-reflective area of improvement dealing with the clan. Um, I kind of pride myself a bit on being able to help new players, and I actually came across a situation where I wasn't even aware the person was as frustrated as they were. So I guess this is for the people that could benefit from this would be more like the clan leaders, the 2 alliance leaders that I know that listen, and I guess anybody that um, like actually does like training and teaching in their clan. Had a player recently that was asking for help. They had just gotten to Steel Path, so obviously that's sort of a inflection point on somebody's ability to enjoy Warframe. But what I missed was this person was asking for help on Earth, defense and interception missions. Okay, so for me, mentally, I'm thinking, okay, those are the tougher mission types, especially doing it solo. Now that most players who are capable or care to do Steel Path have already cleared those nodes, you're not going to find a lot of people doing Steel Path now, to be honest. It's the same thing as what it was before. People are huddling around specific nodes that are like heavy farms, um, or the late game or the latest content. So, like the Zeraman, for example. And when we finally get the Deviri paradox, that will open up different nodes, hopefully. Um, but generally, players are huddled around those regions, and maybe the big open world where there's heavy standing farms associated with them, you tend to find players as well. But you're not going to find players just doing Steel Path Earth missions unless they're blowing through and clearing it, and maybe you can catch somebody doing that. You know what I mean? What I didn't notice was that this person had asked for help doing the defense and intercept missions. So my thinking was, oh, they're just going to skip them. It's not a big deal. It's what a lot of people do. is if there's like one of these harder nodes, these are going to be really hard if you don't have the Steel Path Arcanes yet or you don't know about them. But in the past, people had either just been straight up given rank 5 Steel Path Arcanes and told to go upgrade your weapon, and that made doing the content significantly easier. But I had actually missed this because it was a generic question. Hey, can I get any help on Earth Steel Path? And then nothing happened, and then like weeks later, after the person had messaged in the Alliance Discord how frustrated they were getting, it made me think, oh, this person had asked for help on Earth Steel Path over the period of like 2 months. Now, it was an issue mostly of like on my end where I was online when they weren't, so we really didn't have a lot of overlap, but when we did, it was like on the weekends or something like that. And this other person had a family, but I realized that like from a clan and alliance leader's point of view, I wasn't able to identify what the situation was. I should have picked it up on the second time that this person is asking for the help on the same mission nodes and that they haven't made progress. And considering we're a social clan, and most of the clans in the Alliance are fairly social. Obviously, there's groups that do higher end content and do level caps. I know I'm part of that group, but like I have obligations to the clan. So most of the people are just trying to have a good time, but I was surprised I didn't catch this. So I guess maybe this is me just talking about it. Maybe this will help people view this as like, maybe I need to make like a spreadsheet or something of like when people have asked for stuff. Because obviously it's not going to be something super sweaty because this is a game for me as well. It's not a second job. Though it could easily be defined as maybe almost a part-time job. Certainly making YouTube videos for everybody. But I don't know, I just wanted to put like a small PSA with like my experience in seeing that this is something that is a problem or could potentially indicate a problem. So my thinking going forward is obviously to talk more. That's the clearest way to get more information about what the issue is. Like defense and interception nodes, if you're soloing and you don't have the Steel Path Arcanes yet, or you don't have good weapons, can be very challenging. Even when I did interception, like the Steel Path the first time, I was able to blow through it most of the time. But at the very end, there were a couple of interception missions I did need help with. Now, it was just one other person, but I still needed help. Because I couldn't be in so many places at once, even running like a proper Quora build where I could permanently dome 2 of them. I still wasn't able to do it because of the charging and waiting system. So I guess from like my point of view, it's just saying like a point of like contention that I should be able to do better in this scenario. And I need to include this as a potential red flag. Not only were they asking a question that had been asked for, but I need to remember if the same person is asking the same question a period of time later, that it could potentially indicate progress is not being made. Because I was thinking they were clearing nodes and they were like, oh, I really want to wrap this planet up. But they hadn't made progress at all. So that sort of stuff. The other one is a little more lighthearted. Dealing with the urgency of power creep due to YouTube builds, and this is part of the reason why I stopped posting builds. I have seen, and it pops up every now and then, and I keep having to like knock it down. But people buying primed weapons because they've seen a YouTube build or some Warframe content creator explain in their videos that you have to have a specific weapon to be able to do Steel Path. I do not know how this meta is still around when there is so much information to the contrary. But every now and then, like the one thing was, is this person really wanted to buy a Glaive Prime. And they weren't sure of what the build was, but somebody they knew had told them it's the best weapon for Steel Path. Now, don't get me wrong. The Glaive is a really strong weapon for Steel Path. But there was no context given to why. So I'm probably going to make, just to sort of at least put the information out there, like a proper way to scale your weapon or what you can do to get your weapon Steel Path ready, because it's really not that hard. But that's coming from me saying that and knowing how to build it. Because one of the issues that I've noticed, and with every expansion, this happens. It's a repetitive process. It always happens. We have like 500 to 600 people. Actually, you know what? I'm not even sure. Maybe we're 500. We're about 500. Every time there's a new expansion or big update that comes out, every once in a while there'll always be like 3 or 4 people that you'll hear or see in Alliance chat, or in the Discord, talk about not being able to do the content. And the issue is almost always they rushed the content to try to get to the end. So they have a really, really strong frame like Wisp or something, and they're running a build that only Wisp can get away with, but it's not defensive. And I think I need to change my language when talking about this, because I know I'm guilty of saying it, where, oh, the best way to deal with strong enemies is to kill them. Because the truth is no matter how good your tank is, damage avoidance is still the best method of surviving. Literally just killing the enemy before they get to you. And it's why the AoE meta was so strong, is you could clear an entire room, a small tile set essentially, with a Brahma. Now the meta is leaning toward the Tonkor because of the drop pickup. It's still really strong. It's still got a really strong AoE. You're not spamming as much as you used to because you have to constantly reload, but it's still there. You can get the reload really low and bring the spammability back, but they're probably not going to nerf the Tonkor because it doesn't have the multi-shot aspect and the secondary breakdown of into like bomblets that the Brahma and the Tsar had. So the Tonkor is probably fine. But dealing with, I don't know, this sort of pressure I guess newer players feel. Oh, you have to have a specific prime weapon. Oh, you have to have this specific meta weapon. As somebody who has all the weapons, I am actively trying to get away from meta builds. Like it's enjoyable to me to slowly find weapons that aren't meta, where it's like a hidden gem. And I think it's kind of funny when some of them become the meta. Now, it's not all the time, but like I have been able to nail a couple, like well before the bell curve. But that sort of stuff is really enjoyable to me, where it's really circumstantial. Like how it's not like acknowledged that what the Glaive Prime is to Kernir, the Serrata is to Corpus. And the Serrata is like a cheapo weapon, right? Um, like the glaives are really, really powerful. But dealing with that, to anybody who's in the position where you're talking with like not necessarily subordinates, but somebody who is newer to the game than you, maybe it's just a language change that we have to make. But dealing with Warframe content creators trying to show off high end, high gear builds that are min maxed, we need to acknowledge at least that that type of build is not required in any way, shape, or form for doing your regular star chart run. In no way, shape, or form is that even needed. Steel Path included, with very few exceptions. Maybe a couple of things would be like, oh, it really, really helps to have primed mods. But most of the time, you don't need prime mods to do anything. You can bring a buffer frame if you're trying to kill a boss. You can bring a buffer frame with like a heck for most missions. If you're trying to take down something tanky and you just blow them out of the water with multi-shot. You know what I mean? Like that is the current meta with the Archons. It's why the heck is able to one-shot, is because it's what, 100 and something pellets that you shoot them in the face with? You overload the damage reduction. It's the same thing with like one-tapping Lephantis, where it has the built-in damage reduction also, is you just overload it with multi-shot and just blow it up. So maybe I need to take more care to show alternative builds, um, and like how to build specifically. I thought I had covered it, but this issue keeps popping up. So maybe I'll do like a specific Steel Path build, like how to upgrade your, and not only that, and how to upgrade your mods. Not literally, but to like go from like true steel, uh, when sacrificial steel is appropriate over blood rush, that sort of stuff. Because obviously there's a circumstance for each of those two. We know this, but a new player definitely doesn't. How, if you're doing a heavy attack build, sacrificial steel is basically a fully stacked blood rush if you're using a heavy attack build. It literally equates to the same thing. But you would have to understand the circumstance behind that to know when to choose it. But a new player isn't going to know this. When they see a build from their favorite content creator, they're going to think it's gospel. Except there's a circumstance that that's the right build, and then that content creator is going where that correct circumstance is, and it makes the build shine. So I'm going to put more thought into it, at least when explain it more in depth, so there's no impression on, oh, you need to rush a specific weapon. Because the fact is for regular Steel Path, you can do it with anything. Especially if they have the Steel Path Arcanes, right? Like, the only thing you need to be worried about is losing stacks. Like, once you get to the Zariman, truth be told, you're going to be changing secondary arcanes anyway. If you run a heat frame, you're never going to use a Merciless again with Cascadia Flare. You're just never going to use it again because you don't even need heat on the secondary to proc it. So you can run like a corrosive build and just go around murdering stuff. If it wasn't for stuff like the Tonkor and the couple of AoE weapons that didn't get touched, I would probably be running a primary, like a Sea-Doo primer, and using a pistol as my primary damage source. Because of the way the arcanes are balanced right now. And it's so easy to keep flare up, especially playing like Ember or Nezha or even Protea, which I'm on right now. Because you can get the heat procs from the frame. and then you can run like magnetic toxin on your secondary, and you'll always have full stacks up, especially if you're running around constantly throwing turrets, which is kind of what my build's geared around right now, and cycling through and using the additional power strength on the fourth ability to keep shield gate up. So I'm constantly throwing turrets down. Um, but that sort of nuance is going to be lost on newer players, and I'm putting it in this video to acknowledge I did not think enough about it. I even made an alt account to get through the new player experience, but admitting something that I will not be able to do just by virtue of being the person that I am is I'm not going to be able to recreate relearning as a new player. So where the new players are constantly being pushed, oh, the Zeraman's the newest content. For any new players that are listening, listen, this is not World of Warcraft. It's not get to the latest expansion and you'll get geared up correctly. And all of your gear, it's not this thing where it's like you just get to the latest expansion as fast as possible and you're going to get your gear there. At each area you're supposed to get a set, like the Vigilante set from Cetus, the Hunter set from Cetus, to some extent the Mecha set has some really, really strong niche uses, and whether anybody wants to admit it or not, is one of the few infinite scaling sets in the game. It's the easiest way to get damage cap. So, and what is it? The synth set, Fortuna, the Mecha set and the synth set for Fortuna. The synth set is super strong. Almost makes it so you don't need Arcane Energize strong. So it will save you 1800p right now, which is what that shit's going for. But if you're trying to rush to the latest content and you don't want to do the standings, you're not going to have the amp, which is now an issue because you have to be able to kill the angels. You have to do the standings, or at least be willing to rush into it, because Warframe is as much of a cash grab, a sensible cash grab as it is with like cosmetics. You have to stop and farm certain things. Like you have to get Quill rep, you have to get rep with Little Duck, to be able to get a relevant amp. Like I'm still using a 777, and I'm running what is it? The crit damage arcane and the crit chance arcane from the Zeraman, on energy depletion to be able to melt angels. I can melt angels without Void Strike, but it's because I went and farmed those up. And a new player isn't going to have it, and if they run in and they start trying to do Steel Path content without having farmed that stuff up, Steel Path is going to be a bad time. If you didn't stop to do arbitrations and get a rolling guard, if you didn't RNG from arbitrations and adaptation, it's going to be a bad time. And I think that sort of stuff, and stop buying this stuff. There's a couple of people where they're just swiping. DE's happy. And obviously if you're like short one mod but you've been farming up a bunch and you like I'm probably going to do that on Peculiar Bloom. I have everything else from ESO, and I've got to have 1,500 8-round runs in ESO, and I still don't have Bloom. I have one of the Peculiar mods, and I have like 4 or 5 of them, but I still don't have the other one, and I'm probably going to just buy it with Plat. It's just the way RNG worked out, you know? In that circumstance, I could see just like, I'm tired of farming this, but this is a farm game. If you swipe all the time, it's understandable, but you're going to get to an area where you will be handicapped by the things you cannot swipe for. You can swipe for the arcanes on for your amp, but you cannot swipe for an amp. You have to go farm that. And I love that that's in there, but unlike other games where you can just rush to the latest content and you will get re-geared to the newest stuff and you can ignore the other stuff if you don't want to, like World of Warcraft, you can skip expansions without penalty. Each expansion has like this scaling object that makes you stronger inside the expansion. But as soon as the next expansion comes out, you don't need that object. In Warframe, you would have to go to every expansion and farm that shit up. Because there's something you need from there. Like Hunter Munitions. Okay? It's core on a lot of late game builds. You gotta go do CS stuff for it. The Vigilante set, Vigilante supplies, legitimately should be like 150p mod for how fucking useful that shit is. Because it's one mod that goes in your Exilus slot. And even on my builds, it's either I'm running primed pistol or primed ammo mutation, whatever variant is needed, or I'm running Vigilante supplies. It's always on my build. And I'm running into people in the clan that haven't done Cetus and don't have either of those mods, or they're wanting to swipe for it. So obviously people have like concentrated time. Just relax. You're not missing anything. The updates in Warframe can take a very, very, very long time. Like, we're about to get Duviri Paradox, apparently. And it's been years since it was announced. Like, every update that we have had... Like, think about it like this. On the Twitch stream, the developer Twitch stream, the live stream, they said that the Kuva Liches and the Tenant Sisters were part of the same update. It was two parts of the same update. How long was the difference between those? With the Railjack incorporation, that was always supposed to be part of the Kuva Lich system. What was the time frame on that? And that was an update, and the Duviri Paradox was announced before that. So you have an update that took super long, and then you had the new war was done before Duviri Paradox. And the Kuva Lich system occurred over months and months and months with the Tenant Sister. What was it, over a year? And it was counted as one update as far as the E was concerned. A notable plot arc. But they had to release Railjack at the same time. Like, that was another update within an update. And it was one fucking update. One chunk of content. And it's just, I'm rambling. But just relax on trying to rush. You're going to rush to something and you're going to find a stop sign there. So just take your time. Find something you enjoy in the game. DE has put immense amounts of effort into making it so doing long runs are just as rewarding as doing small ones. Besides testing builds and seeing what your build can do, they have nerfed any sort of incentive to stay in a mission longer. The only system in the game that actually rewards you for staying in a mission for a long period of time is running Fishers. Because you get the stacking credit, was it the credit resource drops, and what is it? credit, affinity, resources, and I think another one. Those stack up to 100%. And now it would be justifiable to do Steel Path missions, because that booster stacks with the Fisher also. So that's justifiable. But in terms of like, you're missing out on content, there's nothing to miss out on, and there's probably never going to be anything you're missing out on. There's no end game boss. There is just maybe a boss for that open world. We didn't have a boss for Deimos. We had Profit Taker for Fortuna. We had Eidolons for Cetus, or Plains of Eidolon. There's no boss for Deimos, like in the open world. Obviously you have Lephanis and whatnot. So you're not missing anything. There's no gear check. And for new bros, just keep in mind, regardless of how good your frame is, if your build doesn't allow you to stay alive, it's a bad build. There is some other mechanic that whatever creator you're following is using that allows them to stay alive, and a lot of times it's something called protective dash. And if you're still working on your focus tree or your focus schools and they're not done yet, just chill on it, run like a rank 2 Grace or whatever the hell you have with a Rolling Garden adaptation mod, and just run what you can. There is nothing wrong with it. Or figure out a way to get like health back or something. You know, like, it just, if you're dead, you can't play the game. So just gradually level up. There's no benefit to swiping, and I can only, at this point basically I'm just complaining. But it's frustrating because I feel like the younger players, or not younger, because some of these people are my age, the newer, less aware, not necessarily naive, as in unable to filter it, but they are just not aware of what the game is, are being given bad information. Just play what you can. If you got to build, make sure it's well rounded. Listen, I'm running a comfy build on my Protea right now. It's not min-maxed in the least bit, and I have no problem doing Steel Path. There's a couple of little mechanics to exploit. Like, I'm only running 30 power strength on Protea right now. If you look at the Overguard builds right now, you're seeing what, 200 max range, max duration, dump stat efficiency, something like that. You just don't need it. So chill on the buy-in of the Prime mods. They're expensive to buy for a reason. But they're not needed. Obviously Prime continuity is a big deal. But not as big of a deal now because there's Archon mods, which is probably the most valuable thing about them, is they're available 24/7. Right? Like, you don't even have to do the Archon hunt to get Archon mods. You have to go pick crap up off the ground, and you get a Prime mod after a week. That's the big deal about the mods, and it only costs you 1 extra capacity because you're forming the Prime slot anyway to match the polarity. So you run it like, what, 1 rank down, and it's the same capacity drain. That's the best part about the Archon mods. As far as like the builds are concerned, is that you have Prime continuity available 24/7, and it's for picking crap off the ground, finding K drive parts, find 6 K drive parts, and don't die during a mission, and jump through 3 hoops or whatever, and you get a primed mod equivalent for it. Who cares about Prime continuity now? And it's a regular mission where everything's weak. That's fantastic. So just chill on the swiping. Most of the time when you see those higher end builds, they are building for something really specific. and you are essentially dump statting every other thing that you don't need to absolutely amplify a specific stat that is incredibly relevant to the content you're doing. It's how disruption builds are done. Like if you're running something like a buffer Saren, you have max strength with as much duration on the frame as possible. You're not running efficiency. You're not running range. And then you're running something that can further amplify your damage. Like maybe you'll do like an expedited suffering or roar, right? Because you are trying to get as much damage onto a weapon, and then you will also pick a weapon that will allow you to abuse that mechanic as much as possible. Preferably a bullet hose weapon, to get as much benefit from that as possible. But older, more experienced players know that. But a new player saying that, just chill on it. You'll grow into that content. Doing your first level cop run. I don't care who you are. That could be the stingiest, crabbiest player doing solo runs all the time. Listen, we're glad to have you in the community, but even crabby people love doing their first level cap. It's like figuring out how to run for the first time, doing your first level cap, and then you're probably going to want to do it a couple different times where you're like, oh man, I actually got something that works. Now you can start tweaking. Get 20, 30, 40 level caps under your belt. It's not that big of a deal anymore because you can evaluate what does it. But just chill on buying the primed weapons. I know the Glaive Prime is a good weapon, but it's not the end-all be-all, for the love of God. Obviously it's enjoyable, but there are many, many alternatives in terms of kills per second. But anyway, I've been rambling a little longer than I wanted. I wanted to give a thank you to my commenters on like recent videos. I'm not gonna lie, I love the walls of text. Like Sheepster hit me with one. And I'm actually gonna reply to it now instead of typing it back out. On my last video, I was talking about shard modding and how everybody needs to chill on that best in slot crap. Because we have 2 of them right now. Okay, so let me just reply to it because I love these. I love these walls of text. Why is so? Okay, so said A. What the fuck? Why did YouTube mark this GW2 content? I'm guessing that is Guild Wars 2, and I don't know because I didn't market that. Definitely agree with that. For without a full 5 set, talking about shards again. We can only really patch small holes right now for a while yet. Really, I'm loving the Theorycraft, but just the Theorycraft for a long time coming. But it's just Theorycraft for a long time coming. Yeah, it's going to take forever to build up enough shards to really have some flexibility, even for me, because until we get more ranks in Call's Garrison, and even when we do, it's going to be 2 shards a week. Okay, 2 shards. And it's going to take, what, a couple weeks to max it out at the rate that they're releasing content for it. I still need to do the second mission. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I was doing Nightwave today. But yeah, no, this is going to be 100% RNG. For those of you that came over from like World of Warcraft, Tau Forged is like Warforged. Where it's like the same thing, but like with additional better stats, right? I mean, obviously that's not apples to apples. It's like apples to oranges, but like clearly if you have a better apple and everybody's getting an apple and you get like a super apple, that's a better thing, right? Talking about duration builds. Yeah, this is probably going to be the initial meta. Legitimately, this is probably going to be the initial meta. And probably the default when modding shards is if you have a frame that is, say, like Loki, for example, and you're doing a stealth build, and you only care about duration on your frame, you can throw a bunch of duration shards on your frame and make him significantly safer. Maybe you'll do like 3 duration shards or 4 to be able to take off continuity. And then you can throw like a glad mod on, and then do like 2 melee crit damage mods or crit damage shards, something like that. So you can keep the same benefit that you're getting from something and further increase the benefit somewhere else. I mean, that's ultimately what it's going to be, right? Like, improve the stats and what you gain out of it's an additional layer of complexity, but that's basically what we're going to be doing, right? Is how do I not get penalized for taking a mod off, or how do I gain a bigger benefit of something that values for this? Like, he specifically talked about Vauban, or Gauss. Gauss is a big one, because I'm pretty sure the meta build for Gauss survival runs is a duration build right now. At least it was the last time I looked. I was running 306% on Gauss for a tank build for the longest time, because I just needed him to be a rock, right? It's really good for solo runs. But like a team build, I'm not sure what that one is. Yeah, talking about alternatives. No, I completely agree with these. And somebody brought up, hold on. And it was part of the min-maxing. Hold on, it kind of triggered me a little bit. Okay, I'm not calling them out. Talking about how something wouldn't be that good. It's talking about shields. Sethanator was talking about shields for blue shards would be nice on a parasitic armor rhino for 1 million iron skin build. I guess his spacebar broke. But I'd have to redo my calculations on everything, which I don't feel like doing right now, Lamau. No, I agree. And this sort of experimentation is healthy, even if it doesn't work out. What does it cost you? Like a couple Helminth resources? It costs you nothing. Just figure it out and mess it around. But this sort of stuff where it's like, oh, it wouldn't be that good, unfortunately. The fact is it doesn't even have to be that good. All it has to do is just be able to allow you to take a mod off your frame. It doesn't have to scale exponentially. It just has to save you a mod slot. And it's good. Like, say, with the yellow shard that's coming, or the yellow shard that's coming out. I'm taking natural talent off of Protea. And I will just deal with the 30% casting speed, the slight difference. Because who's going to care about like a 25% casting speed difference? You just need a little bit more. And it's going to save me a mod slot. That's all that matters, is if I can remove mods from my frame and gain modding space on my frame, and in some circumstances, my melee primary or secondary, if I can utilize those shards to take things off, mod-wise, off of those weapons, they're worth their weight in gold. But that requires multiple of them to be able to add up, right? So it doesn't have to scale. Yeah, it's a flat amount. I understand that. But if you have 2 Archon blue ones, that's a redirection. Like, you can remove a redirection and keep the same bonus, or have like a slightly lower one if you're still running a shield build. If it works, who cares, right? All it has to do is just save you a mod, or give you enough of a benefit that you can take a mod off, and all of a sudden it's worth its weight in gold, right? So the min-maxing, usefulness is diminished, this sort of stuff. Like, just chill until we have options. Obviously, if everybody's running around with 5 of every color Tau forged, let's talk min-maxing, right? When we have options. But right now we have 2. There's nothing wrong with dropping a shield on a shield crystal onto Rhino so you can use it for parasitic armor. If it gets you to 1.1 million iron skin or whatever, actually, what is this capped at? Isn't it capped at 1 million? I was never much of a Rhino. I'm pretty sure this ability's capped though. It's something super high, but I think this is capped at something. It's sort of like like Frost's Globe, where it's not really listed in the tooltip, but there is like a cap. But no, just mod whatever you want, test, experiment. Very rarely in Warframe do we get something where it's just a goddamn free-for-all. And nobody knows what the hell's going on. Like, we're gonna figure it out. But just, if you want to change your shard out every mission, dudes and dudettes, that shit's on you. I'm running comfy stuff where it patches holes, and I highly recommend it. Because you need the most bang for your buck out of a single thing. But once you can actually gain like a solid benefit, like I fully expect melee-centered Warframe players to run 5 red shards, preferably Tau Forged, that are melee crit damage. Like if that's your build, guys, do whatever the hell you want. You know, if you like running like health regen, if you want to have Nidus's 4 health regen 24/7, there's nothing stopping you from do it if that's how you want to play. There's time to min-max later, but now we're just dealing with what we got. It's more about what can it do, not what should it do right now. Because we just don't have the options. There's no good options right now. But I don't know. Like my entire point is like, okay, so I need to work on being more sensitive to maybe somebody who isn't specifically asking for help, but a non-moving point of frustration. If the person brings up every now and then the same frustrating point, there's probably a new story there. And what else? Maybe more forthcoming with information on how to get around certain like choke points in terms of builds. Because building up your Steel Path Arcanes is a choke point. When you go to doing Steel Path your first time and you see the enemies, it requires a build without the Arcane. So that until you build those up, that is a choke point, and I would have to be more sensitive to that. And everything else, I guess, is just me complaining. But anyway, thank you for listening to my rant. I swear to God, when I clicked record, I thought this was going to be like a 10-minute video, and here we are at 48. But anyway, to anybody that got this far, I appreciate you. If you have questions or things that you're thinking about, like maybe theory crafting, and you want me to try it out, I'm completely willing to do that. Just leave a comment down below or anything. You don't have to like, you don't have to subscribe. I'm really here for like the quality interaction, and I was even talking about that with some of the people in my clan, where they were like, wow, you're about to hit 400 subs, and I'm just not looking to be famous. I'm not. I would rather this be a place for genuine discussion and have like 30 viewers each video if I really had to choose. But it is what it is. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, you're a better person than I am. Dudes and dudettes, stay excellent. Have a good day.